Beavemanites and docutrons, assemble!
Okay, so back in the day, I was way above the wave, and I traded in the girls for the video games. I played so much Super Smash Bros. And the kids called me names. They called me Mike Tyson.
Oh, welcome listeners. This is Beaveman and the Doc. I'm the Beaveman, and the Doc is not here. But in his place is Paper Doc, as always. Paper Doc, how are you today? You know, I'm pretty well. Thanks for asking. And you know, this week... Shut up, Doc. Sit down. Also with me today in Renegade Beaver Studios is the lovely Swan. Swan is joining me. Say hello.
Hello.
Good.
I normally say hello, Swan.
Okay,
but you
well,
didn't
then
say
why-
that. So, but you didn't say hello, Swan. So I didn't say
So you
hello,
threw-
Swan.
Okay.
Changing it up a little.
All right. Well,
I can do that
You can
because
do
I'm
that.
from Detroit.
you're super skilled. You're super skilled. Yeah. Do you know? Have you always liked documentaries?
I don't think always. I like documentaries. I don't want to say I like history documentaries, but I like documentaries, not documentaries about history.
Just to clarify, you don't like documentaries about history, but you do like documentaries.
Historical things like wars and
Isn't everything
history type
historical if
things.
it's not
Yes,
happening there right
but I'm
now?
talking about like history, like history class history. I do not like it. Give me timelines and dates and wars and people's names. No.
But isn't everything a historical documentary?
I guess if it's a documentary,
I mean,
yes,
if
it's
it's
a true
something-
thing documentary.
It's
yeah.
still all historical, right? By virtue of a documentary, it has
Yes,
to
but
have
I'm
been
talking about
filmed
boring
already.
history, which apparently a lot of people don't think is boring. They think it's very interesting.
History is pretty interesting. Why don't you like history?
But I think it's because I had bad history teachers. I had a bad history teacher in high school.
Did you have a bad history teacher?
In high school.
In high
It was
school.
not in Detroit, though. It was in Warren, not Detroit, if I'm going to clarify. But yes, he was terrible. He had a coffee cup full of, pretty sure it was alcohol, smelled like cigarettes, and all he did was watch movies. We watched movies every single day because I'm pretty sure he liked the lights off.
For what reason?
Because he was probably hungover every
He
day.
liked the lights off because he was probably hungover.
Correct.
I thought you were going to say he liked the lights off because he was like touching himself or something. and
Well,
he
that
wanted
I
to
don't
see
know
it.
about that, but I know he was definitely. We watched movies more than he taught, and it was terrible. And I had him 2 years, like American history and whatever other history you
Whatever
have.
other type
Whatever
of history there
type
are.
of- yes,
Whatever types of histories
exactly.
that happened to be around at that time. So just to clarify, though, do you like documentaries?
I like documentaries, but not like about the Civil War and other type of stuff.
You don't
like
think
that.
the Civil War is interesting?
I can't even tell you. Okay, I'm who was in the Civil War? No, yes, but
You can't tell
no,
us
I
who was in the
can.
Civil
Yes,
War?
I can. But like the whole no, like that whole game, Axis and Allies, and all that. I don't even know anything about that because
Well, what do the Axis and Allies have to do with it?
it was, it had like Japan and who was with you.
We were not
and-
against Japan in the Civil War.
No, I'm
Have you
talking
ever
about
seen those things where they ask
New
these-
subject. I'm on a
where
new
they ask
subject.
where they ask college kids
yeah, and I
about
probably would
topics,
fail all
and they're
those.
like, "What do you know about who fought in the Civil War?" They're like, "Pretty sure we fought Germany." And okay, well, who won? Well, like we won,
Yeah, I would fail those because I blocked all of that out and I didn't learn anything in history.
But you know who fought in the Civil War?
The North and the South.
Of what country?
This country, duh.
Which is what?
The United States.
Okay, well, I was really worried there for a minute because
I got
you
that. I
do
can't-
have.
I couldn't tell you the year. Is it like, see? I don't know.
Okay,
So, that's bad.
okay. Well,
But,
I
yeah.
gotcha.
So, yeah.
All right. Well,
But
now that we've
documentaries,
established that-
yes. I want to watch documentaries about like murders or
I want to watch I want to see documentaries about murder.
like, all the like fat, sick, and nearly dead and all those kind of ones that are interesting. Medical stuff or crime, science, that kind of stuff. That's interesting. And those are documentaries.
Right. Do you think here's the only issue I have with documentaries, and it's not an issue, is it's like anything else. You have a documentary it's made by someone and they try to be objective, but of course it's hard for them to be objective because they're interested in the subject in the first place. So it might be a little bit skewed toward their opinion.
Yes, I feel like all documentaries probably have an opinion side to them because you can write the same documentary, I can write it, and we might have a different biased or opinion about it. Yeah, I agree.
Which is fine, as long as everyone understands that when they see the documentary. Most
but
likely,
all of your facts would be facts, just like all of my facts would be facts. But
sure,
do we
the tone
all
just
have
might
the
be
same?
different.
Correct.
Tone might be a little bit different.
It's kind of like watching basketball. Like you can pick that like whose ref side you have it from, like our home side or the away side, and they comment differently. The commentators are different, whether you watched it from
So let me
the
get
home
this straight
team
now.
or
You felt that there was some need to further explain what you'd already explained.
I did. That's what I do. That's why
just
you
wanted to
make
be a
fun of
little
me.
bit
I do.
repetitive.
Yes, I'm repetitive.
Could you give us another analogy of having two different opinions on the same situation?
Nope.
Please go.
That's all I got. Nope. I can't do it on command. I just
You
do it
can't
spontaneously.
You can't be repetitive
No.
on command.
No, I can't.
All right. I guess then my next question.
It's got to come out naturally. That's how my conversation flows. Apparently, it's not natural to you, but that's how it is for me.
Did you ever feel like there's a point in time where you give too much detail or you say the same thing over and over again?
I don't feel that, but I do kind of get lost sometimes. Like I'm going off on my subject, and then I like forgot what I initially started to talk about. So I can ramble on forever, but then I forgot the initial conversation.
I feel like you just like to talk.
I might.
Maybe you just like to hear your own voice.
That could be part of it.
Do you ever feel like maybe you just, even if your story has nothing to do with anything, that you just feel like you have to get it out there?
Yeah, and I usually interrupt because that's how I roll. And that's when my brain starts thinking. Like, it just comes out. I can't stop it.
Uh-huh. All right. Well, now that we've established that, I think that I like documentaries about just about everything. So I would like to see, I was thinking about the other day, there's so many things that I have no idea how they work, but I would like to see how it works. And I know they have shows now that's how does it work, or how does this work, or how does that thing work? And I guess they even have podcasts on it. I don't know that I need to see a podcast on how something works because I'm not going to be able to visualize it. But just something as cool as like, how does a sewing machine freaking work?
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing in general. Like, how exactly does that work? I think it would be fascinating to see. So, in other words, you can see a documentary on just about everything right now. On Netflix or Amazon or whatever. And it's the same thing. Netflix will give you a suggestion based on their, their AI, if you will.
Yeah, your
their
algorithm
algorithms
of what you've watched before.
Based on what
Yeah.
you've watched. The most recent one I watched, and this wasn't on, so this is the free advertisement for Hulu, is on the Laci Peterson murder.
Yeah, and I watched one too. I picked it after you said you were watching it and picked a different one, not even knowing which one you picked. So we have two different perspectives.
So
I guess,
you
right?
watched the one from Investigation Discovery, I think.
I think so. Mine was called, what was mine called? It was called Scott Peterson, An American Murder Mystery.
Okay, and then the one I watched was, I think, from A&E.
Yeah, and yours was called Truth and Lies, The Murder of Laci Peterson.
All
and
right.
yours was a series, so you had more than I did. Mine was only like an hour and 20 minutes, like brief
I think
history
mine was
of the whole
6
story.
episodes.
Yeah.
6 episodes. Well, I watched yours, though, also. And just the tone of yours is different because it's an investigation discovery type. And they've got to have that tone, and they've got to have the suspenseful music. And the other one is not like that.
Yeah, I didn't watch the other one.
The other one's interviews and fact-based and obviously opinion-based also, but from both sides. Now, with yours, the one that you watched, what do you think the tone was? Do you think it was setting up... Well, maybe let's just do this. Describe the actual case itself from your memory and the players involved.
So I think they start out with a little bit of brief story about Scott and Laci and how they portray them as like a happy couple, and then all of a sudden it's Christmas Eve and Laci's missing, and they immediately shift it to from the police side where they are already thinking that Scott is guilty. of something. And they don't even know, it's like she's missing, but they don't have a body, they don't have anything. They just think he's guilty.
Okay.
So, and that's the perspective. The whole entire thing is he's guilty.
Oh, 2002, Modesto, California. We've got a couple. Laci Peterson, 8 months pregnant, married to Scott Peterson.
Yes.
She goes missing. That's the whole beginning of everything, basically.
Yes.
Why do you think this story was so interesting for the country at large? Because at this time, right, 2002, we're invading Iraq for the second time. There's plenty of other news out there. Why do you think the news picks this story for appeal-wise?
Well, I think it grabbed attention because it was right around the holidays, like Christmas was coming, and she was a pretty pregnant woman, like pretty as in beautiful pregnant woman, and she went missing right at Christmas with no, like, seemed like a happy couple. I don't even think, did they say like their economic status? I don't think they even portray them as a super rich couple or anything. They just look like a normal, American couple. Had their first baby, walking their dog, like normal family, and now they're missing. Getting ready to have their first baby, yeah.
Right. No, he's like a fertilizer salesman who apparently is doing okay, and she's like, I don't know what she did for a profession, but she was like going to school to be like into horticulture or something like that.
Yeah, I think so. Science of some sort, yeah.
Plant-based science, if you will. Well, all right. So here's the facts that we know, and then we'll decide what we're going to do. And spoiler alert, if we ruin it for you, she's already murdered by the time you've heard this podcast 18 years later after the fact. Because as we said, this murder was in 2002. I do remember this story. I don't remember getting all into it, though.
No, I remember seeing it.
I feel like I was pretty busy at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, doing other things. Not really too worried about it. I was also never really into like the OG trial or anything. I've never been really into these celebrity trials. I never have been. It's just not, it doesn't interest me. And like you said, these aren't celebrities, but this is what the media does. They're like, oh, we found this interesting story. Let's look. Now, if this was an ugly couple, I don't think that it would have been national news.
That probably is true. I think that they were trying to get it out in hopes that she was still alive and get coverage for it to see if they could actually find her.
A little more cynical, I almost think that they don't give too much of a shit.
Okay.
Because this is what media does. Media, and they say it very well in the documentary I wrote. Media is like nighttime news or whatever. It's entertainment. So they have to pick something that is entertaining for people. If this was an ugly couple, probably not too many people would worry, honestly.
That's pretty vain, but
It's
that is true.
It is
yeah,
true.
I mean...
It's true. Let's face it. And if you listen to this podcast, let me go ahead and give you a spoiler alert also for this. If you're a listener of Beaveman and the Doc, you already know that I'm going to say obnoxious shit. And if you can't handle it, you might want to turn off your podcast or not listen to it. But if you want to hear me be obnoxious and foul and all these other things, sit tight because it's going to happen. I'm going to say some pretty fucked up shit because that's what I do. And if you don't like it, hey, listen anyway and pass it on to others just to say, hey,
share your dislike.
Listen to this fucked up shit that the Beaveman said. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't point out ahead of time with the podcast that we are going to rebrand the podcast. There should be some applause in the back.
Yay! Applause, claps.
Applause, people. We are rebranding. Hold up, just wait a second now. You said that you're rebranding the podcast. Yeah, that's what I said. I said we are rebranding the podcast. So what exactly, what does that entail? Rebranding the podcast. That means that we're rebranding. So like, you know how it used to be Dunkin' Donuts. Now I guess you kind of refer to it as Dunkin' because we don't want to have donuts in the title because that makes people fat. I don't know. That's what rebranding means. So what does that mean to you there, Swan? Rebranding.
I'm pretty sure we're cutting your name out of the title, Paper Doc.
So what we're doing is we're going to say it's the Paper Doc Show.
I said cutting out.
No, I think what you meant to say, because let's be honest, you are a woman. You probably
Yeah.
don't have two brain cells to rub together.
Probably not.
What you're saying is it's going to be rebranded as the Paper Doc Show.
That is not what I'm saying at all.
I
Apparently,
I
you get
can't
your
even
ears
understand
checked.
what you're saying because whenever you talk, all I do is think about your boobs. So shouldn't you be like doing some dishes right now?
Probably.
I mean, what do you think, Beaveman? Shouldn't she be doing some dishes? Well, honestly, I've lived with the Swan for many years, and generally speaking, she doesn't do too many dishes or much housework at all. Honestly. Because I consider her to be a slob.
I am not a slob.
I am
I am
the-
just not
you just don't
anally
live up to my
clean.
standards of
Correct.
cleanliness.
There you go.
So
I'm
I
not
do,
a slob at
I
all.
do the majority of the cleaning, Doc. I mean, really? Yeah. I mean, that's so pathetic and sad. Anyway,
It's called teamwork, Paper Doc.
How about you do some teamwork over here and come touch my tent?
No, thank you.
Oh, Doc.
No, thank you.
Oh, Doc. You just really... Sometimes you just got to keep it in your toga there, Paper Doc. Keep it in the toga. Rebranding. It's a little bit exciting. We're going to be announcing that in each podcast. It's going to take some time. We've got some talented people working on some things, and we're very excited about it. The nice thing about the rebranding is that we're going to be opening up the podcast more, in my opinion, to include those folks that have stepped in and been cast members. So I think that's fun.
Yeah.
This way, it's not all about me and the doc. Obviously, I mean, the majority of the time, I'm going to be on the episodes. But there might be times when I'm not around and I might not be able to. And then maybe Swan steps in and does it with one of the other cast members. Who knows? This way, I think that we get a well-rounded podcast.
Some different topics, different opinions. That'll be good.
And what we're going to do today is we're going to try out a plan that I had and see how it works. So now, going back to this murder trial, the Swan has watched the show. She's watched an episode, a documentary. I've watched a documentary. I've also watched the one she's watched. What is your opinion on the Scott Peterson, Laci Peterson trial? Scott Peterson was convicted and is still in jail to this day on death row.
So my opinion, watching the show from that point of view, he's guilty. However, they leave so much doubt and so much unknown and not admissible or not admitted to court. A lot of information that if you really look at all that information, I don't think he's guilty. But
Or,
if I
in
only
other words,
had the
you had enough
information,
reasonable doubt.
I have
If you
enough
were sitting on
reasonable
the
doubt.
jury,
Yes.
If you were sitting on the jury, you're like, I'm not 100% sure that he did it.
Well, I don't know because based on that, they showed everything that the jury wanted to see.
Well, I mean,
Like,
now. I'm saying now. If there was
yes, now.
if we went back in time and all the information that we know now was presented to us now and we were sitting on the jury, is there enough reasonable doubt
Yes.
where you could not 100% say, yes, he's guilty?
Yes.
Because that's how our system is set up.
Right,
Our system
right.
is set up.
If I had all the information that we have now and the information that was not given to those jurors, yes, I would say that there's enough reasonable doubt that he did not, that I could not say he 100% did
Right.
it.
You're not saying that he didn't do it. What you're saying is it has not been proven.
Right.
And the judge says this in one of the shows. They say, essentially, they remind the jury that if there is doubt in your mind, you must rule him. You must say that he's innocent of the charges. You must lean towards a verdict of innocence and not one of guilty.
Correct.
Whether he did it or not, if there's doubt in your mind saying, I'm not 100% sure the guy did it, you have to go towards the innocence realm and say, well, I'm not saying he didn't do it, but I also can't say 100% that I'm sure that he did it.
Yes. So in my opinion, he was not guilty.
Not saying
Or
he
not
didn't
saying
do
not
it.
right. Yes, but I would give him not guilty because I don't think
they didn't
there's
prove it.
enough proof and enough evidence to say that he did it. Like I wouldn't be able to go to bed at night saying that I want him to die for, killing his wife and unborn kid.
Right.
No.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to make
Well,
that
I am of
decision.
the same opinion. After watching those two documentaries, my opinion is that they did not prove, beyond the shadow of a reasonable doubt, they did not prove to me that he did it. I'm not saying he didn't do it. What I'm saying is there's enough doubt in my mind that he didn't do it. And so therefore, as a juror, I would have to say that he's not guilty.
Right.
Right. Okay. So basically, you and I have the same opinion.
Correct.
Now, this is going to be a very boring podcast if we just agree with each other.
Correct.
So the plan is we're going to have to disagree.
Okay.
Now, we have to decide who's going to disagree. We'll do that by the flip of a coin. So we both think that he didn't do it. So the little helicopter, shout out to Echo Company 51st Infantry Long Range Surveillance Airborne. I'm flipping my old company coin. Helicopter's heads. The unit crest is tails.
Heads.
You're going to call heads before I even flip the coin. Okay.
Well, yeah.
That's fine.
Isn't that how it works?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Right.
I want heads.
And then you get to pick whichever one you want if you win.
If I win, I want guilty.
Oh, so you're going with... Okay. All right. So you want to argue for guilty. Well,
Sure.
then we could... Okay. Tails. So you're arguing guilty and I'm arguing innocent. So you still win because I was going to pick... All right, I'm going to argue
Well,
for
I
you.
just figured that's what you would pick, so...
Well, then fine then. You've got to argue for him to be innocent.
Okay.
And
so
I'll argue
I have
for him to be
not guilty. Okay.
You've got not guilty.
Okay.
I've got guilty. Let me lay out the facts as I see it then. Scott Peterson. This is a man who couldn't keep his penis in his pants. He's got an 8-month-old pregnant woman, and he's not real thrilled about banging her anymore because she doesn't want to bang so much. She's waiting to have her baby. It's a couple weeks before Christmas. Somebody that he knows sets him up with a blind date. He meets some chick, bangs her, and then kills his wife because he feels like he can get a better life later on with this other chick. And then he can be footloose and fancy free. He doesn't even have to stay with this other chick. He can just be single and do what he wants to do because God knows, as a fertilizer salesman, he's going to be pulling all kinds of tail.
Okay.
Everybody wants to date a fertilizer salesman who's living in Modesto, California.
He's not ugly. He's a nice-looking man. He's tall and mostly handsome. I mean, he looks like a nice-looking guy. So, I mean, I don't think he had a problem getting women, clearly. And I feel like that wasn't his first
it's not
affair
like he's selling
either.
shit. I mean, we're just saying fertilizer. It's not like he's selling bags of shit.
Well, that is bags of shit.
Well,
but okay.
No, it's probably nitrogen and stuff like that. They have there are artificial fertilizers,
Okay, anyway, I guess it doesn't
It's
even matter
industrial
what he
fertilizer.
does.
Industrial fertilizer. Sure, of course it does. If I
mean,
meet
he's
you in a
not
bar and you're like, what do
unemployed.
you do? I'm like, I sell shit for a living. What do you do?
I mean, that's a good topic conversation, I guess.
That you sell shit for a living?
Yeah. I mean, how...
All right, okay, well,
Okay,
whatever.
anyway,
All right.
we're diverting.
We're diverting. Okay. Basically, how does he do it? Here's how he does it. In my opinion, let me set the stage. This is December 23rd. December 23rd, Lacey's sleeping. He climbs on top of her, strangles her. Apparently she can't fight for shit. Scratches his hand a little bit, maybe. Then he rolls her up in a tarp, throws her in his truck, and then on December 24th, he drives her to his warehouse, throws her in a boat, gets in the boat, hooks the boat up to his truck, drives to the marina an hour and a half away, gets in the boat, attaches anchors to his wife's arms, legs, head, and dumps her in San Francisco Bay.
But didn't people see her on the 24th? So your theory is shot already. She was already seen.
That's just speculation.
Okay. Well, speculation says that there were witnesses who saw her December 24th morning.
Witnesses saw a large woman walking a dog.
I feel like your neighbors pretty much know who you are.
Well, no neighbors said that they saw Lacey. They saw a woman that looked, none of them knew her by name.
Okay.
This is an old lady said that she was at her kitchen window washing her dishes and she saw a woman walking a dog and they showed her a picture. She's like, yeah, that was her.
Okay.
She didn't name Lacey and say, oh, that was Lacey.
All right. So, all right. There's your theory.
So he's gone. He dumps her body, whatever. The neighbor who actually knows the Petersons found their dog outside, wandering around with its leash on, and she puts the dog back inside the gate and goes about her day running her errands. And she was able to exactly calculate the time when she thinks this happened because she had receipts from these other places that she went that were timestamped. Mm-hmm. And that was, I think she said like 10:18 or something like that.
Uh-huh.
So clearly, Laci was already dead by then, and Scott probably just walked the dog outside for a poo and then forgot to put it back in.
But they have a backyard. Why would he walk the dog out on a leash for a poo?
I don't know.
And
I'm not him.
If he set his dog loose, like, he's all sorts of an asshole. Like, he kills his wife and lets his dog try to get run over by a car. Like,
Clean slate, man.
start over. Just start a new life.
He's starting over.
I feel like he wouldn't do that to his dog. Even if he killed his wife. Just saying.
Okay. So he comes back after he's dumped her body in the bay, goes back home. He places a call to her after he's loaded everything back up so that he can timestamp it so he can say that he called his wife. And of course, she doesn't answer because she's at the bottom of the bay. Mm-hmm. He drives back 90 miles, mind you. He couldn't fish any closer than 90 miles away.
Maybe he didn't know where any lakes were.
You couldn't look at a map? There's no lakes near Modesto, California. He's got to drive all the way to San Francisco Bay. In a tiny boat, mind you.
Uh-huh.
Now, I've had a boat bigger than his, and I didn't even like to go out on our large local lake, let alone go in the bay in San Francisco.
I agree. I wouldn't take that.
And why drive 90 miles away to put your fishing boat in the water to fish
for
an hour and a half and then drive back an hour and a half? He just knocked out 4.5 hours total time of driving and spending time on the water. Why go out on a boat for an hour and a half in the water?
I don't know. Maybe it was cold because it's
cold.
December.
Well, that was his excuse for not golfing that day. It was too cold to golf. Now, if it's too cold to golf, I think it's a little too cold to go fishing.
Was it warmer in San Francisco than it was in Modesto? I don't know. An hour and a half, like,
I don't know.
Warmer? I don't know.
An hour and a half warmer?
An hour and a half warmer.
Warmer, folks.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it might be
either.
windier on the bay.
Maybe.
Than where he plays golf.
Okay.
Whatever. Makes it back. Wife isn't there. Of course not, because he's already killed her.
Right.
Calls his mother-in-law to see if Laci's there. Of course Laci's not there, because he's already killed her.
Uh-huh.
And then they say she's not there. They're worried about it. And so the father-in-law, which I thought was odd, the father-in-law calls the police and reports her missing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's all you got to say. So far, you're not building much of a case.
Well, I was letting you give yours.
Okay. And then the police go, they question Scott Peterson. He's like, okay, yeah, my wife's missing. She's 8 months pregnant. Goes and talks to the cops. They run through the story with him. He doesn't mention anything about having him an extramarital affair, even though they ask him specifically if he's having any problems with his marriage. He doesn't bring anything up.
Maybe that wasn't a problem to him.
That's not a problem?
No, that's not a problem to him. He's not having problems with his wife. He's just having some side pussy.
Okay.
So that's not a problem. She didn't know about it. So how is that a problem?
Well, I mean, I guess it's not a problem because he already knows Laci's dead because he killed her.
No, I don't think he killed her.
All right, so tell me your thought process then.
I mean, yes, he's a dirtball. He's cheating on his wife. So he's already trying to make up, lies and excuses and alibis for himself so that he can go hang out with his new love interest or lust interest or side woman chick. So maybe his whole going an hour and a half away to go fishing was so he could talk on the phone to her or to make time for himself away from his wife so that she's not suspicious of him when he does that in the future. Oh, yeah, I'm going fishing. Yeah, when he's really hanging out with the girl.
Uh-huh.
So that's his alibi for being... And she knew about the boat. They said that.
All right, let me say this. And I'm not the only one who's ever going to say this or who has said this. And maybe this makes me a dick. But this just goes to show that men are mongrels. Myself included. Because of this reason. The chick that he hooked up with, not as hot as his wife.
That is true.
I mean, no offense, lady. if you're
Amber?
listening. I'm sorry.
Amber, I'm sure she's
but
not
I'm sure you
listening.
know. I mean, I'm sure you know that you're not as hot as Laci was.
But she was new and fun and interesting. So, I mean, I don't know. If I was going to hook up with someone else, it wouldn't be someone with a kid. So she had a kid. Why would he kill his own wife and then hook up with someone who already has a kid?
Because he was tired of being married and didn't want to be a father.
But he's going to hook up with the lady that has a kid?
Well,
I don't think so.
It doesn't mean he's going to be with her long term.
So, I don't know. I feel like, why would he kill his unborn son? Most men want a son, first of all. To hook up with a random, not as hot as his wife, chick who has a daughter. And
know what?
he'd constantly be reminded that he killed his son.
You know what bothers me also about this whole thing is they never say who hooked them up with each other.
I don't think... It was her friend.
Right, but
Yeah.
how would she not know that he was married in the first place? How did he know her? How did he know this friend?
I don't know.
And they never
I
clarify
don't think...
that.
Yeah, I don't think they ever
never
said
talk
anything about
at all.
that.
All
So
right.
if you're the friend that hooked them up and you're listening to this, let's hear some more information.
Yeah, let's hear why you did it and how
Yeah.
you knew Scott Peterson in the first
And
place.
how did you not think he was married, or how did you not
Right.
know? Yeah.
I feel like she knew, or
Yeah.
that person
or he.
knew.
It doesn't even say if it's a he or a she. It was a hooked up by a friend.
Right, hooked up by a friend. Whatever. Okay. And when do you... So at what point do you think Scott killed her?
So I don't think he killed her. Stop.
I was just trying to get it. I was just
No.
trying to see if you're like, well, I think that he did it.
I mean, he was cooperative with the police and not shifty. Like, even looking at his police interrogation, or not even an interrogation, what are you calling it? His cooperative discussion recorded with the police the day that she was missing. He was calm. He didn't look like he was...
But why would you be calm, though?
Well,
if
maybe
you were
he was
missing...
trying not to be, like, shifty and lying.
But if you were missing, I would not be calm.
I don't know. Maybe...
If you were missing, I would be freaking out, and I would be demanding that the police get out there. I would be out there. I'd be calling everybody I knew. I would be freaking out, trying to find you.
Yeah, that maybe, I don't know. That's a little
Why
bit
is he
weird,
so-
but he was
why was he so
because
calm
maybe
about the
he
whole
was
thing? He's
trying.
like, oh, maybe she's just out doing something. No, dude, you've got an 8-month-old pregnant wife with your child. I would have been freaking out for this. There's one thing to freak about. I'm like, maybe he's like, well, maybe they were having problems and maybe she left him. Okay, maybe that was his thought process. But the fact that the dog was out by itself,
Yeah,
that would have immediately made me think, oh my God, something happened to my wife. She didn't leave me. The dog would not have been out by itself.
I don't know. That is a little weird, but maybe he was trying to be calm and cooperative so they didn't suspect him.
I think if you're calm and cooperative, they're more likely to suspect you.
Well, he wasn't.
Okay, we don't do it anymore, but we've worked in the emergency room. And we see how emotional people get. I mean, just in what I would consider the non-emergent arena that you and I both work in now, we see how emotional people get in those arenas where it's not life or death.
Right.
You mean to tell me if somebody is missing that you love and care about, you're not going to freak out?
I'm probably going to freak out, but I would try to be like cooperative and give them like all of the timeline. And he was trying to do that. Like he said, we watched TV, we watched the show, we talked about what we were going to do that day. She's going to do this, this, and this. I'm going fishing. Like I came back. Like maybe he was just trying to supply a good timeline for them to see when she really did go missing.
But why go spend that time away from your wife on Christmas Eve in the first place?
I don't know. That's a little weird.
Why
I mean,
drive an hour and a half away to fish for an hour and a half and then drive an hour and a half back?
I still kind of want to know, did he like try to call his girlfriend then, or who knows? But they never say that. So maybe...
I mean, why do it other than to dump a body?
Because he was trying to go test out his fishing boat. He already had plans that day to go golfing, so maybe they weren't like planning on being together. She was going to do preparations for like food and stuff for the holidays, right? She was planning on doing holiday cooking or holiday whatever, so he wasn't planning on spending time with her anyway.
Well, she was going to clean the house and then she was supposed to go to her mom's or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, to do holiday meal prep or something. So he's like, whoa, if I'm not going to be part of that, I might as well do something. Since he was going to go golfing, I'm not going to go golfing. I might as well try out my new boat.
Well, let's talk about the evidence against him then, from my perspective.
Okay.
Oh, he establishes a timeline, essentially. And they speculate that eventually the body washes up. Let's just say that. Eventually the body washes up, okay? It's got no head. It's got no legs. Got no arms or hands. Got no baby. Got no organs. All right? It is hypothesized that the reason why it has no arms and no head is because he weighed Laci's body down with some homemade anchors made from cement and it looks like rebar or whatever. Now, I actually had one of those. He had an anchor in his boat.
Right.
And he said he only made one. Here's the interesting thing. There's no rope attached to that anchor in the pictures that they show on the documentary. Well, why would you have an anchor in your boat with no type of cable attached to it to use as an anchor?
Clearly he's an idiot. He took his freshwater boat to saltwater, a boat that's too small for that bay to begin with, and didn't dock it didn't anchor it anywhere, so maybe he didn't even think to put rope in there.
So why bring the anchor?
Well, maybe because he's an idiot and he thought that he might use it. I don't know.
Well, so he made his own anchor.
Yes.
But where he made it, it looks like there was more than one anchor made. So there's cement markings that look like there was more than one bucket made. So where are those anchors?
Probably attached
If he
to his
actually
wife.
made.
No, but maybe he didn't make more than one. Maybe it's just he moved it, and it made marks. Mm-hmm. In more than because there was not more than one bucket, right? So maybe he took it out and set it there, and it made a mark.
Okay.
Just saying.
Just saying. Okay.
Okay.
What about, they also say that when they did the investigation, they were able to find a pair of needle-nose pliers that had Laci's hair inside the pliers, crimped inside the pliers.
Okay, so needle-nose pliers, that goes with fishing. I mean, it goes with, like, hooks and stuff for fishing, right?
Right.
Like, you can... So, I feel like that's not unheard of to have needle-nose pliers in your boat to go fishing. And hair... As we know, I'm not a clean person. My hair is everywhere. So I'm pretty sure my hair could be in your needle nose pliers in your fishing boat, especially if I was in that warehouse or by the boat, or even just that morning said goodbye. My hair is attached to your jacket or whatever, and it gets attached to your pliers.
Mm-hmm. So you don't think that he used the needle nose pliers on her and that's how her hair got in there?
No.
That's what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. Was there any other DNA on there? Like blood or skin or whatever? Or just a piece of hair stuck to it?
Right.
Because I'm pretty sure they could test for all of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there was no evidence in the house either.
Right.
Except for an indentation in the bed that had already been made.
So he came home, sat on the bed, took his clothes off, whatever.
So why did he take his clothes off and take a shower if he didn't kill her?
Because he was wet from fishing and muddy from fishing or dirty or whatever from fishing. And that makes sense because I'm pretty sure it's windy and that boat was not the correct size for that bay. So it makes sense. And especially loading and unloading your boat, you do step in the water. So why wouldn't he go take a shower? I mean, if you were wet and cold or wet and smelled like fishing, I would take a shower after that.
All right. Well, what about the fact that his timeline doesn't match up with the supposed witnesses who came forward that saw the dog?
Well, he has a record of his boat launch ticket that has a timeline on it. What timeline is not matching up? I feel like it does match up. Like he said, he left around.
I don't know. I know all this stuff about the case, and I'm trying to get you to say it so that I don't have to pull it out. If you're trying to argue for him,
so he said he watched TV with her approximately 8 o'clock in the morning. He said goodbye to her. He left before around 9:30 or 9, whatever it was. He has his time-stamped boat launch ticket. He called her at 2:15 because he was on his way home. So I feel like driving to and from there takes an hour and a half, fishes for an hour and a half. His timeline lines up pretty well to me.
What about the witnesses?
the witnesses that saw the dog
Yeah.
at 10, well, he was already gone by then. So maybe someone else took her. It does say that there was a burglary across the street from them the same day. So maybe the burglars took her. Maybe.
Okay, so here's the timeline. Apparently, I'm flipping to your side for 2 seconds.
Okay, flip to my side.
The neighbor says that she put Mackenzie back, and Mackenzie was out with her leash on, and she puts her back into their gated area. Okay, They make a big deal of this and say that this was like at 10:18, so clearly she was dead before that, and that's why Mackenzie was out there. Now, here's what they don't say in the court trial. I don't know if they never called this lady or what, but that happened all the time. Mackenzie was out all the time. This was not the first time that she put Mackenzie back.
See, so I never knew this.
She's done it a lot.
So
was
the
a
dog
common thing.
escapes, apparently.
It was a common thing.
Okay.
Or maybe Laci had her on the front lawn and then went back in to grab something and came back out.
Maybe, yeah.
Oh, here's what happens. The neighbor puts Mackenzie back in the gated area. All right. Later on, I can't remember what time it was, but they don't call up the mailman either. The mailman comes to deliver mail.
That was like 10:40 something.
Okay. And he doesn't hear or see Mackenzie. And he's delivered mail there every day that the mail comes. And every day that he goes, he knows that if Mackenzie's not barking, Mackenzie's not there. Which means Laci's walking the dog.
Right.
Now we have a timeline and witnesses' sightings of Laci walking the dog on a route that is basically a circle back to her house at different times, and all these people saying that they saw her. The defense doesn't call any of those witnesses because they felt the timeline, because it didn't match up with what the initial neighbor said, would not be any good proof for their case, which I think is a complete mess up on their part, because if they would have talked to the mailman, which I think that nobody knew about that initially,
right.
If they would have talked to the mailman, they would have realized, oh, just because she put her back doesn't mean that Laci didn't get her back out and then go for a walk, which is clearly probably
and my
what
story
happened.
did not have that in there. So I don't know this part.
Yeah, so that's clearly what probably happened.
So it was later. Her walk was later.
Right.
So,
she walked the dog after the neighbor put the dog back.
Oh.
Most likely.
So that solidifies.
So then the timelines would fit
yes.
with when everybody saw her.
So then that even further says that he was not there to do it.
Right. So he wasn't there.
When
She was
went
alive
missing.
when he was gone.
Okay.
All right.
So I did not have that part. But I still don't think he did it.
Well, that's more proof that he didn't do it.
I'm just saying.
I'm saying.
Even without that information.
All right, now when you're talking about the robbery, so there's a robbery right across the street. On the 24th.
Yes.
So they say originally.
So they say,
What they say
yes.
is originally it was on the 24th. This lady who lives in the neighborhood, she was driving by the house that is across from the Petersons on the 24th, and she saw a van in front of this house with some suspicious-looking
With 2 or 3
characters
people outside
who
of it.
gave her a dirty look. And then she, instead of calling the cops and saying something's going on there, she kept it to herself or whatever. But she distinctly remembers that it was on the 24th.
Correct.
Well, the police subsequently catch these people who burglarized that home because the people were gone from the 24th to the 26th. They got home, found out their safe was missing.
Correct.
They catch the people who did it. The people who did it say that they burglarized the house on the 26th.
Yes.
Which we know that that's impossible because they say that they pulled the safe out and put it on the lawn to pick it up.
Yeah.
We know that's impossible for a major reason. The major reason is this. By the 25th,
Her
there
house
were
is
reporters
surrounded. Yes.
is everywhere. And her house is right across the street. If there was burglarization of that house on the 25th or the 26th, the news reporters would have seen it all.
Right.
Because they were camped out.
Correct.
So there's no way that happened. And yet the police don't refute that date.
Yes.
Which makes absolutely no sense.
Because it doesn't fit with their timeline. They want him to be guilty.
Which goes back to what I've said before.
They want somebody to blame, somebody to put in jail, somebody to make it all pretty, and they don't want to be wrong.
Right. What they do is they lock onto a suspect and they make the evidence fit that suspect whether they're guilty or not.
Correct.
That's what they do. That's why I said if you're going to... This is why if you've listened to my podcast before where it's Beaveman, Prison Scares the Beaveman, it's because of this. If they decide that you're guilty, it doesn't matter whether you're innocent or not. You're going to jail.
Yep. Because they're not going to make themselves look wrong.
No.
And they're not going to redact what they said. If they're adamant that they are correct, they're not going to admit they were wrong. And they'll strike out stuff that's even correct. They comes back later, there's a taped conversation that is nowhere to be found between one of those burglars and his brother who's in prison. And now they can't find that conversation. He's like, don't talk about this. It's recorded. One of the prison guards was talking about it.
He starts talking about the pregnant girl.
Yes.
And yes, the prison guard recorded it, calls the police and says, hey, this conversation happened.
Right.
And someone came to get the tape from him, who was supposed to be a member of the Modesto Police Department.
And now it's all of a sudden missing.
It was never logged into evidence. They can't find where anyone from the police department, so they say, ever went and got a tape. And the guy who said that this all happened refuses to be a part of the appeal process because he doesn't want to have anything to do with it.
Right. The guard.
Obviously,
Yes.
because he's scared for his career or scared for whatever. So, clearly, because the Swan's doing a shitty job of presenting this case, we have to
agree.
We have to agree. So it's throwing my entire timeline, my entire plan off. So I guess if you don't agree with us, then you're going to have to email us and argue with us. Further proof of going on down the line, right? We've established that other people have seen her, but they don't call him to trial. What we can also establish is the jurors already had preconceived notions about what they were going to vote. Here's the problem always with any of these publicized trials are you're supposed to try to find people that don't have a preconceived notion or that haven't heard anything about the case, but if it's already a publicized case, of course people have heard about it.
Yeah, and they moved it, but they moved it 90 miles away. However, it was still in the same television broadcast, so everybody who's 90 miles away was still getting that same television channel.
Right.
With all of the news information and all of the information. And those jurors was such crap. He's like, I haven't heard of it. I worked night shift and I don't have access to TV. Bull crap, you don't have access to TV. What do you think you do all night? You sit there and watch TV, I'm sure.
And let me just say this, juror number 8, if you listen to Beaveman the Doc.
You big fatty.
You big fat fucking piece of shit. Let me tell you something. You had a preconceived notion in your mind that you were going to convict this guy, probably because you're a fat fuck who can't see his fucking penis because it's too fucking small, because your fucking fat gut is in the fucking way.
Exactly.
Yeah, I said it. And clearly you were a fucking bully and you bullied the foreman to the point where he was like, fuck this, I'm not dealing with this bullshit. When you have somebody who's presenting evidence and you don't want to hear it because you've got a preconceived notion, you're just a fat fucking piece of shit. And let me tell you why. Because you didn't allow the justice system to work. And then after the fact, you're sitting there joking about the fact that you sentenced a man to death. You're a piece of fucking fat shit who can't even see his goddamn toes.
Yeah. What he said.
Exactly. Well, let me tell you something else, you fucking fat, you piece of shit whore with your fucking pink hair and your purple fucking lipstick. You're sitting there talking shit about Scott Peterson and saying how he's going to fucking fry and you can't kill the baby and blah, blah, blah. You lied to get on the jury in the first fucking place. You said that you'd never been a part of a criminal prosecution and blah, 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 and you were a fucking liar. You're a fucking liar. You got on the jury. You should have been thrown off that fucking jury selection. That's why there needs to be a retrial. That's why his appeal needs to go through.
Yeah, and they're totally going to listen to us about this.
Well, at least the beauty of podcasting. Let me tell you about the beauty of podcasting, people. There are podcasters out there who say, there's too many podcasts. Are there, though? I mean, isn't there an opinion for everybody in the world? Even if no one in the United States listens to my podcast, there's more countries than the United States. And even if 50 million people in the United States start a podcast, does that mean that I should not podcast? Does that mean that I should not throw out my obnoxious opinion, my ignorant opinion on things that I find important?
No, that's the beauty of it.
That's the beauty of podcasting.
Exactly.
That's exactly right, juror number 8. If I want to call you a fat fucking piece of shit, you are a fat fucking piece of shit.
What about the other one? Was it jury number 4 that had a son that was the same age or whatever?
Oh, yeah. That guy, he wanted to convict him, too. And he wanted to joke and say, "You guess what, Scotty? You can't kill a pregnant woman in the state of California." You know, and in his mind, he says that, you know, that's the guy who did it. No, and I don't think that in any way, shape, or form could you say that without a reasonable... If you could say without a reasonable doubt that he did it, then you're fucking lying. Because the defense shot holes in the prosecution's case from the very beginning.
Even in the opening statement, about his Martha Stewart show thing, they proved them wrong. Like that he was not watching the same show. They didn't even watch it.
Well, they didn't even look at the date. He was correct. They were wrong.
Right.
And then they want to speculate that, oh, he must have killed her on the 23rd or the 24th or whatever. Here's the thing, and here's the problem with the judicial system in general. And I'm not a lawyer, obviously. I'm not even a shithouse lawyer. But let me tell you this. When they don't admit things into evidence, but they come up on a documentary later, if you were a juror and you're watching this shit and it still doesn't stick in your head that you convicted the wrong person or that you didn't do your due diligence to be a juror, then you're just someone with very little brain function.
Yeah, how can you not sit at home and feel like hell about yourself when you know that all of this stuff is coming out and not what do you do? Like, I would feel guilty that I put somebody on death row now that you have all the evidence that shows that even if he did it, there's evidence that show that what you convicted him with was not even admissible.
Yeah, I think the reason why he was convicted, honestly, is because there were bullies on the jury, and the two people right away that said he wasn't guilty both got dismissed.
Yeah.
The first person they got dismissed because he had spoken to the family. He really didn't say shit.
No.
And there was suspicion that he would talk to book deal or something like that. So he gets dismissed for basically nothing. But juror number 8, who was talking at a bar about book deals and how they were going to sentence him to death and all these things, doing everything that you're not supposed to do. And this is why they should have been sequestered in the first friggin' place.
Yeah, I can't believe they didn't do that.
He doesn't get dismissed. The foreman, who wanted them to go over the facts in detail to make sure everyone understood it, he gets bullied and gets dismissed. I mean, I'm sure he requested to be dismissed, but still, the point is, the people who would have given him a fair trial were dismissed. The first guy dismissed said that he was not guilty. He was going to vote not guilty anyway. They did not prove that he did it.
Right. I think there's just too much lack of evidence to say that he did it.
Well, it's amazing that you can get convicted of murder for circumstantial evidence.
Right. They had no
DNA evidence. There was nothing done in the house. So where did he kill her exactly? If he killed her, where did he kill her?
In broad daylight somewhere? Yeah.
Then he loads her. That was a tiny boat. So then you're telling me that he loads a body with her limbs anchored down and throws her into... They had witnesses that saw Scott Peterson in his boat.
Right.
Float by, and they said there was nothing in his boat.
Right, and you can see in there. Like, it's an open, shallow rowboat, basically.
Yeah, it's a tiny boat.
A little boat.
Even a tiny body, it looks like a body in a boat.
Right.
In a boat that size.
And so even if he drove it in the back of his truck and then moved it into the boat, somebody would have seen that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's just crap.
Well, then the defense goes and they get a boat, same size as Scott's, same model as Scott's. They take a 150-pound dummy, which is what Laci would have weighed, roughly, as a pregnant woman. Mm-hmm. And then they take 4 anchors, the same cement anchors. They weigh it down, and then they take a guy who's young and not a fat piece of shit like juror number 8, and they tell him, okay, we're going to film you. We want you to dump this body in the bay. Every attempt he made to dump the body made the boat capsize. or come close to capsizing. He couldn't even get that body out. Now, if you imagine 150 pounds of dead weight plus anchors on every limb, you know how hard that would be to get out of a boat and not capsize?
How could he even throw? He couldn't, number one, pick that up. That'd be like 300 pounds to pick up and throw over with anchors. And a dead body is just a limp piece of
it's
meat.
all dead weight. It's not helping you.
Right.
It's not helping you. Like, oh, here, let me stand up a little
and
bit.
And if you threw part of it out at a time, right, he'd flip over. So that's completely stupid.
But that was not admissible in court. They did not. The jurors didn't see that. All they did was they pulled the boat on a trailer into the parking lot and let them examine the boat.
Yeah.
So again, it's just a matter of what's admissible, what's not admissible. Are we saying, oh, this guy clearly did it because, he was cheating on his wife, so he clearly killed her. Now, I'll admit that there was a lot of coincidences that make you think that even if, again, I'm not saying he didn't do it. What I'm saying is the evidence presented does not
prove that
he did it.
Right.
And that's the problem. You have to. Is it a problem with the justice system, or is that protective in the justice system? I'm sure lots of people who are guilty walk.
Right. Just as many
innocent people walk as are guilty, and just as many people who are innocent go to jail, which is unfortunate.
So I feel like our judicial system is probably broken then.
Well, there's definitely some issues.
Yeah.
But again, the presumption of innocence is important. But like when you look at the things that don't support him, for example, he has this affair with this girl, and he tells the girl 2 weeks before Laci becomes missing, that he lost his wife. He tells this girl, I lost my wife.
This will be my first holiday since I lost my wife.
Right.
But that doesn't mean she's dead. That just means...
You have to admit, though, that's a pretty scary coincidence. It's a frightening coincidence. That, to me, does say that's a little suspicious that maybe he did kill her. But it's still not enough evidence to say that he did kill her. Because you have to think about this. If he was trying to be a player in the first place, my justification is this. He told her that in anticipation that she was going to ask him to spend the holidays with her.
Right.
If he would have said, I can't spend the holidays with you, he needs to come up with a reason.
I'm going to Europe because it's the first year without my wife. I need to get away from all these bad memories, or all these painful heartache memories of losing my wife last year around the holidays.
Right. He clearly already had it all planned.
Right.
I mean, he could have told her, well, I can't, I'm going away and I've already had this planned and I've already paid for this trip,
and
et cetera,
I have
et cetera.
a 1 month. I mean, he was planning. He was smart. He was planning for 2 months away from her because he's going to have the holidays with his wife, Laci, who's alive, and they're going to have a baby anytime now. So he can't up and leave and hang out with Amber whore like an hour and a half away.
I don't think Amber's a whore.
Well, in her defense, she didn't know about it.
She didn't know. I mean...
Okay, but she screwed him like date number 1.
Okay, well, that happens. That happens. Lots of people do that. That doesn't make them a whore.
Okay.
I mean, I personally think that, hey, you know what? They're both adults. They should go for it. Just because your freaking knees are locked doesn't mean other people have to be that way. Just saying.
Okay, well, anyway. So Amber, you're not a whore, but you were misled, and I feel really bad for her. Honestly, I do.
Hey, Amber, you're just not my type. I don't think you're a whore. You're just... you're not the Beaveman's type.
I actually feel bad for her because...
Sure, she got the shitty end of the deal,
She got the shitty end of the deal, and she got dragged through all of that. Like, it looks terrible. Like, and I feel bad for her. She got misled and...
Yeah, well, yeah. I think that the public in general, other than the mean assholes like myself saying that, she wasn't as hot as Laci, I think that she was a very, extremely brave person, and she did everything she could to try to get justice for Laci. Right.
And does she think that he did it? I don't know.
I'm sure that she does. I think that she thinks he did it.
So, I don't know.
Coming from her side of it, if I was her, I would think so too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not, you're like, wait a minute, you told me that you lost your wife, and then she becomes up missing. That's a little scary.
Yeah.
But again, looking at it from the player aspect, he had to make plans for the holidays.
Right. So and for his baby to be born. Exactly. So, wait, so we didn't get to talk about the other pregnant, murdered body
Okay,
that
talk
they
about the other
found.
pregnant murdered body.
So, like, what was it, a month before? Laci, they found another pregnant murdered body in the San Francisco Bay. That wasn't admitted into court.
No.
Like, that would have been pretty damn coincidental.
Right, listed, wasn't that one missing its hands and feet also and
Yep.
head?
Yes.
Yeah, it is kind of coincidental.
Or just a little coincidence.
It's a little bit of coincidental. Yeah.
So, yeah. Another point in
yeah, I mean-
Scott's favor that he was not guilty. I'm pretty sure he's
Or unless
just
he
not
killed that
going
one,
out and
too.
killing random pregnant people.
Unless he killed that person too.
Maybe.
Which I'm
But
surprised that they
don't-
didn't admit that into court
And try to prove him
try
to-
to pin it
yeah.
on him. That's what actually surprised me when you hear about that, is that they're like, well, why didn't they they tried to pin this missing girl on him that came missing when he was in college at the same time as him. They tried to pin that on him, which there was no evidence whatsoever, but it doesn't matter if there was evidence for it or not. Once you put that into the public's eye, all they're going to remember is like, oh, well, he probably did that too.
Right.
Or if they didn't follow the case all along, they're like, well, they just assumed that he was convicted of that also because he probably did that. So once they plant these little seeds, you're fucked.
Yeah, he did not get fair justice at all.
No, and to be, the fact that every time that they showed him, he looked like he wasn't showing emotion, but also the way the courtroom is set up, there was jurors who wouldn't have been able to see if he was having emotion or not because they were at basically a right angle to him, and he's obscured by his attorneys in the first place. So even if he was showing emotion, they wouldn't have seen it.
Right.
And,
And they specifically told them that they didn't want them to show emotion. They didn't want them to see emotion. I think that's crazy.
Yeah, well,
Like-
if you look at the other documentary we just watched, which I highly recommend, is the Aaron Hernandez documentary. This man who was killed, his mom took the stand, and they asked her not to be emotional. And
Yeah,
of course,
how
she
can
was
you be
trying really hard. She's
emotional
like, how can you not
when
be
your
emotional when
damn
you're
son is
talking? Yeah, you're
murdered?
talking about the murder of your son, and she did her damnedest, but they're telling her, don't be emotional, don't show emotion. It will sway the jury or whatever. And you're like, well, how are you going to do that?
So that whole thing is crap, though. You don't want to sway the jury with real emotion, but you want to sway them to prove
Without
somebody
emotion.
without emotion
Without
that
emotion.
he's a murderer.
Right.
So, but we can present that he's a heinous murderer and all the mean derogatory terms towards him. That's an emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't show anguish and concern emotion, but you can show that he's an asshole and a murderer and a cheater and that's an emotion too.
Yeah. Well, the thing is with this going to an appeal, and we won't hear about it if it ever goes to appeal or not until they make another documentary or it makes the public news. But if it's been up since 2017 in the California Superior Court of Appeals or whatever, if they decide to take the case, they might decide they don't even want to take the case. If they take the case, I think the biggest reason why he will get to have another trial is because of the jurors.
Right.
They're going to show that they had preconceived notions. They're going to show that that juror should never have been on the jury selection in the first place. And admittedly, the defense and the prosecution have to agree on jury selection. But she lied.
Yeah.
She flat out lied and shouldn't have been on the jury in the first place. And then you have the other ones that they can clearly show that they were bullying people, and they can clearly show that juror number 8 should have been dismissed, et cetera, et
Because he's a
cetera.
fat piece of
'Cause
shit.
He's a fat piece of shit who can't see his penis. And it's probably inverted.
Probably.
I think that's probably inverted.
Yeah. He pees on himself.
Pees on himself, probably can't wipe his own ass, that sort of thing. Looks like a beach ball. I mean, literally, he's like a beach ball because, the nozzle that you blow up your beach ball, that's like his penis. That's
Right.
tiny little nub
He should
that
just
doesn't
wear
stick out.
stripes.
That's why it's inverted. Yeah, he should. Anyway. Yeah, but I think that if he gets an appeal, that's why, is because of the jury.
Yeah. Well, and the lack of evidence. Like, come on, how can you convict somebody with no evidence? That's just crazy.
It's circumstantial. They can convict you all day long. And you also have to look at the influence of the news, like Nancy Grace going on every night and saying how he did it. He clearly did it.
Yeah.
And she talks about the anchors and the cement. And there was one point there, like, well, where's the, if you only made one anchor, where's the rest of the cement?
Right.
Where's the rest of the cement in the bag? And he's like, well, I poured it out in the gravel area on my lawn.
Right.
And she raged up and down saying nobody would do that, blah, 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 wouldn't do that. And there was another person, I can't remember if it was a journalist or whatever, was like, well, why
wouldn't
not?
you?
Why wouldn't you? People do that all the time. That's something my dad would do. That's just what you would do with it. Like, if you don't need to mix further cement, you're like, well, I'll pour it into my gravel area.
Right.
So they finally traveled back to the house, Nancy Grace and this other guy, and she'd raged on and on TV about how that wouldn't happen. He clearly lied and made another anchor. He went up to where Scott said that he had poured that, and you could clearly see that he did. He even took pictures of it.
Yep.
Showed it to Nancy Grace, and she's like, oh, okay.
But she didn't say,
But she
I'm
never
sorry.
redacted. Yeah, she never went
don't
on
eat
TV
crow
and
on
said,
that, because
yeah.
exactly, you can't be wrong.
No. The bottom line is she convicted him.
Yeah.
She got the public
Her media,
opinion.
public opinion.
Her public opinion is what got everybody going. And it's amazing to see her on... She basically conducted, instead of being a journalist, which is what she's supposed to kind of be, right? She's supposed to be giving
She
legal
didn't give
opinion.
both sides at all.
She didn't give both sides.
No.
She just flat out convicted him.
And I feel like it would have been different, maybe even if Laci wasn't pregnant. But then it wouldn't have been a raving news story that way either.
Right.
So if she wasn't pregnant and she was just a missing wife, it would have been way different. Mm-hmm. But
No, again, they pick what is an interesting story, and that's an interesting story. What's also interesting, if you watch the documentary, and of course I recommend everybody watch the documentaries, because we really didn't talk about that much because there's so much stuff to actually talk about. There's no way we can get to it all. What's interesting, if you watch the story, is there are journalists who covered the story, and it's not even a 50-50 split. It's probably a good 70% say he didn't do it.
right.
To 30% that say he did.
But they take, like, just like the documentary I watched from the one that you watched, they take the parts that are relevant. Like my journalist ones, it looks like he did it. Mm-hmm. But it's the same journalist in yours too, and they give all of the information. So again, it's skewed to be what you want it to
But
be
in yours, they never asked that guy what his opinion is.
right. No,
And
they
mine,
left that
they
part
do.
out.
He
exactly.
says, he's like, I
That's
don't
what
think he
I'm
did
saying.
it, because he was the one, he knows for a fact that burglary didn't take place when they say it did, because
Right.
he was there.
Right. At the house on the 26th.
Yeah, and he said, he's like, there's no way that there was a burglary. I was there.
Yeah.
It had to
But they
have
didn't
been-
put that in
No.
my documentary because that doesn't fit the fact that he's guilty then.
No, because the Investigation Discovery is going to do a different type of show than A&E is going to do.
Right.
The narration is different. There's music in the Investigation Discovery one. There's all
Because they want to
that
make
stuff.
it entertaining.
Right.
It's the entertainment value.
Yeah. Bottom line is this. Juror number 8, you're a fat piece of shit with a tiny penis.
Right, exactly. And Nancy Grace, you suck.
Nancy Grace, I mean, I like your passion, but you suck. I mean, you decide ahead of time who's guilty. And instead of reporting the facts, you just say, oh, this person's guilty. I'm going to say they're guilty. And you were probably a good attorney, but as a journalist, you're a shitty journalist. End of story.
There you go.
Now, I mean, on the other hand, though, if you would like to be on my podcast, I mean, that's cool.
Right.
Or if you'd like to send money my way to get me to shut up and not give my
money?
opinion. If you'd like to give me some, if you want to give me some hush money, I mean, or if you'd like to sponsor my podcast, and
Yeah, that
then I
too.
can say what you want me to say, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I'm a whore also, but I don't do it for free. I'm not doing shit for free, people. Other than this podcast. This podcast is free to y'all. But again, if you want to send me money, that's also fine.
So I don't think he did it. Bottom line.
I think he deserves a retry.
I think he does.
I think the appeal should go through. I think he deserves a trial that he should have had.
With
I think
all
that's-
the evidence?
With all
Yes.
the evidence presented. And they're still uncovering evidence. And all the witnesses who saw Laci after the timeline, and even the neighbor, they should have said, was this a common occurrence? Were you putting Mackenzie back? Yeah, it happened all the time. She said that. She's like, yeah, it was not uncommon. That's how she knew exactly what to do. She's like, oh, I just opened the gate and put Mackenzie back in and go about my day. I mean, Laci could have literally been inside. She didn't ever say she knocked on the door to look for anybody.
Right. No, she just put the dog back.
All she did was put the dog back. I mean, Laci could have been grabbing some chapstick.
Or going pee because
Going
she's
pee.
8 months pregnant.
Exactly. And then she's like, oh, Mackenzie will stay in the yard
Yeah.
and come back out. The other thing is interesting, and this is why you have to watch both documentaries. I would say watch them both. Watch both of them. And watch anything else you can watch and get both opinions of both sides. They paint Modesto as this perfect, beautiful town, but it's not. It's a crime-ridden area. There's lots of murders. The cops will even say that when they're honest, like, oh yeah, there's lots of fucking murders here. Watch the documentary where it talks to the bail bondsman about how shady the town is. Listen to the private investigator when he talks about, yeah, it's kind of a fucked up place. It wouldn't be uncommon for there to be burglaries. And if Laci saw a burglary, there's people who say this about Laci. She would have confronted them, which is a bad idea, but she'd have been like, what the fuck are you doing in my neighbor's house?
Yeah. Huh? Yeah. And then that's where she got missing.
Right.
Like, oh, we need to shut her up.
Exactly.
Or maybe it was the pregnant murderer.
Maybe there really is a satanic cult.
Yeah.
You never know. I will say this, though. If there's a cult,
You're doing it all wrong.
I'm not going to call you Satanists because that's an insult to the true Satanists out there, because a true Satanist cult probably wouldn't do that. If you are a cult and you did that, it's because you're clearly fucked up and you think you're Satanist, but you're not following the rules and you're giving Satanists a bad name. Clearly, I don't even think it's a cult. I think it's just some sick fuck who's obsessed with pregnant women and wants to cut fetuses out of pregnant women, or cut, well, I guess it's not, we still call it.
It's a fetus.
It's
a baby.
It's a fetus until it comes out as a fetus.
Right.
That's what I think happened. I don't think it's a cult. I think there's some sick fuck out there that nobody's caught.
Yeah. And they're just still, I mean, how many other pregnant women have been abducted since?
Right. And in the fact that the body washes up in San Francisco Bay, they say that convicts Scott Peterson. I say it doesn't, because from the very beginning, the very first press conference, they said that he was fishing in San Francisco Bay.
Yeah, why would you admit where you were going?
Why would you tell them
and
where the
you're
husband
gonna dump
was?
a body? And then that just tells the murderer, hey, dump it there.
Yep,
The
dump it
husband
here.
was there. It'll totally convict him.
Exactly.
So I don't think he was given a fair trial at all.
No, there was too many fuck ups, like we hear about all the time, that there's always fuck ups. And I know the cops have a hard job, but I will say this too, and I'm sure the cops listen. This is my opinion about cops. Glad that you do what you do, but be honest with yourselves. For the job that you do and the responsibility that you have, you're pretty uneducated. Your education is pretty low for the power that you have.
I agree with that. Yeah.
There is no way. That's like saying with our job, I only got to go to school for 4 months to do this job. No, I don't think so. The amount of power you have is not equal to the amount of education that you have. And that's just my opinion. Opinions are like assholes, but you know what? Mine's pretty spot on. So I would hope that there's plenty of cops out there that further their education and really understand the criminal justice system. Because why would you want to be reduced to a simple technician? That's not what you are. It's not what you should be. That's my 2 cents.
Yep.
Doc, what do you have to say?
I've been in school forever.
I like cops, especially those hot little girl cops, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes when they're wearing those flak vests or those bulletproof vests,
And
just
handcuffs.
accentuates the curvature of their, all right, okay, go ahead, sit down there, Paper Doc. Sometimes he takes a little twisted route, if you know what I mean. Here's my recommendation. Watch the podcast. No, not watch the podcast. Watch the documentaries. I mean, you can watch my podcast. It'd be kind of boring if you just watched it. It is an audio file. You know what I mean?
Listen to the podcast.
Because we're not going to talk about this again. We're going to talk about other stuff. We're going to try to argue. Hopefully, I'll get a guest on who knows what the fuck they're doing.
Shut up.
And
It's not even fair.
who knows what the fuck they're doing. Hey, if you're going to pick...
I should have picked the other side.
You should have picked the other side.
I should have.
Should have picked the other side. It's much easier to just say they're guilty and try to refute all the evidence that I give. But you wanted to go
Well,
route.
that is why I picked that originally, and then you convinced me to pick something else.
I didn't convince you to pick something
You did.
else.
You did.
No, I didn't.
I did. I picked guilty first, and then you convinced me to pick something else. See what you
Well,
did?
you're the one who took a lot of notes.
I did.
What I'm basically saying is, Beaveman, the Doc listeners, Swan sucks.
That's not even nice.
This is a failure on my part. And next time I'll pick someone who is more prepared. No?
Okay, whatever.
No? Is that what you
Whatever.
say? No?
That's fine.
I'm just kidding. She did a good job. All right. That's it for me, the Beaveman. Adios, mooch fuckos.
Bye.
Pika pika.